wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
You're listening to A Quirky Journey, the healthy family podcast with your hosts Jo Whitten and Fuad Kassab.
And welcome once more to our podcast, A Quirky Journey. With me is the incredible Jo Whitten from far north Queensland. Jo Whitten, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was quite a welcome.
All right, so Jo, you did this next podcast on your own with Kale. Maybe we should get away, but just give us the highlights of what's to come. Like, what's the topic?
Okay, so we talked about the My Health record, which has recently been suddenly accelerated. It's been around for a while, a few years, but it's not been compulsory to put your details on the My Health. Now it will be unless you opt out. So Kale is a journalist who we've viewed before about his gut health movie. And he gives an intro at the start of what he does and who he is and his background in journalism and things like that. And he started looking into the My Health record and was quite concerned about the implications. And so he did a video and podcast on it, and it went a bit viral on social media. So we thought we'd get him on to talk about it. It's just good to be aware of, current issues and, make your own decisions on whether you want to opt in or opt out. But it's quite an interesting discussion.
Wonderful. So
have you got anything to add to that, Fufu?
No, I think it's, it's one of those things where you really have to be aware of this, because this system is asking you to opt in by default. So it's just really important for you to know that the choice is being made for you.
What you're opting into.
But you haven't actually, you've only been given the choice to opt out. It's sort of like the Telstra directory almost, like where they say you have to either pay us $50 or something like that, so we don't list your phone in the directory. And I'm like, surely, not listing it is something that costs less than listing it. Yeah, that's a way to and it's one of those things that you need to opt out from if you choose to. Yeah. But by default, you've opted in. So really be aware of what it is that you are being asked to opt into without making a conscious choice of. Have a listen to the podcast and get educated on the topic and spread it with your friends and family so that all of you are aware and can make the choice for yourselves.
I think it's quite soon, the cutoff date too, so that's why we wanted to get it out there pretty soon. So make sure you share this with your friends and family that you think need to know about it. I think it's the middle of November is the complete cutoff, something like that.
There we go. So, great. Awesome, guys. Well, on to the show. We'll chat to you next week.
Thanks, Fufu. Welcome, Kale. It's so good to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me back on. I always love having a chat with you. And, we're missing you.
Yeah, he's ditched us.
I know.
He double booked.
Must be in the mountains swimming in the waterfall or something.
That's probably what he meant.
Glorious.
That's probably what he meant by double booked. Oh, too funny. So what have you been up to lately?
Well, actually, I'm down in Adelaide at the moment. I've had a couple of social engagements, which I always try and mix in with a couple of work engagements when I come back here. So, I just had my father-in-law, not that he's technically my father-in-law, but my father-in-law's 60th, and then I've got my friend's stag show this coming weekend. So I'm trying to work out how that's all going to work, because I'm the best man and I'm meant to be organising everything. So yes, I'm not sure.
Are you an events organising type person?
Well, I guess I am, aren't I? But you'd think that would help, but when you have to organise the things typically associated with a buck show, it does tend to get a little bit more difficult than normal.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that.
Yes. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, in between working and managing, the Gut Summit and the books and the films and all the rest of it.
And what's the Gut Summit? Do you want to explain what you're doing with that?
Yeah. So we are running a series of one-day sort of exciting gut events around Australia. We're going to Perth in November, and then Adelaide and Sydney in February next year. So we're basically sort of getting together some of the best practitioners that we know, people like Dr. Damien Christoph, Dr. Andrea Huddleston, Dr. Peter Dingle, Helen Padden, Dr. Margie Smith. Those guys just sort of getting together for a comprehensive day on the gut, where people can come and get a little bit excited. And so we're just organising those events and doing some extra interviews and things like that. And then I've also
it's a live event, not a online.
Yeah, so we obviously, you were involved in the Gut Healing Summit that we did online, and that had a big reach. But what I found, and what you would know as well, is that when you do these online events, you miss out on that one crucial part, and that's getting together, and getting people
makes
inspired.
Such a difference to be there in person.
Totally, because you get surrounded by the energy,
and you can focus. Whereas if you're at home watching something, it's easy to get distracted.
Yes, totally, especially in this day and age. I tell you what. Yeah, so no, we're just doing that at the moment. I've got Tim, working hard, organising all the logistics of the event, and I'm busy sort of in publishing mode of the next book. I don't know if you saw on my Instagram. This is pretty exciting. I'm actually probably most excited about this. I've got
that's good. What's it called? I can't remember if I saw it.
So it's called Amanda Microbe's
I
Big
did.
Gut Adventure. So it's a
the
kids gut health book.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about that. So that's coming out sort of for Christmas this year. So I'm really pumped.
Oh, that's really
to
good.
share that. Yeah, it's so
that.
cool. Yeah, me too. I can't wait to see the end result. It's just so adorable at the moment. So I'm really liking this project.
Oh, watch out, world. Kale's getting into kids' books. This could be interesting.
Yeah, talking about kids' books and then buck shows. How's the contrast?
So when are you in Perth? Because we're in Perth in November as well.
Yeah, so we're there at the start of November.
Okay, and we're at the end.
When are you guys there?
We're at the 21st and 23rd, so we won't see you. But that's okay, because then our events don't overlap, so that's good too.
I think so, and then people can sort of do all the learning and then do the more on-hand.
The cooking
the cooking and stuff.
There you go. Oh, well, that's good. And I'm pretty sure that you're also still doing a bit of travelling for your film.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit. I'm doing some virtual travelling as well to the UK, because we're adding in an interview with someone who has influenced quite heavily you and me, Mrs. Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. And
I love talking to her. She's such a fascinating woman.
She's so intelligent, and you almost have to slow her down.
Oh, I know.
She speaks so fast, and she's got so
much to share
in her head. Yeah, so we're just sort of doing an interview with her, and before we release the Gut movie internationally, and hopefully via online streaming services and stuff.
So that will go into the movie, like you're redesigning the movie.
Yeah, just a revised edition, basically, just to sort of fit the international market a little bit better. So that's kind of what we're doing, and still hosting the odd screening here and there in Australia.
So when the new version comes out, will Australians get to see it?
Yeah, we'll throw it up on iTunes, and we'll do a sort of initial special for a few dollars or something, so that everyone in Australia can pick it up nice and cheap and see the revised edition.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Yeah.
When we did our 100th episode on A Quirky Journey, we interviewed Dr. Natasha, and I tell you, that's been one of our most popular podcasts. It was just so full of so much wisdom and information. Yeah, she's amazing.
She's so inspiring. She brings that rare blend of extreme intelligence with extreme empathy and compassion.
And the traditional wisdom of, that she learnt from her grandmother, who had all this passed down to her, and it was just so interesting to hear how she healed as a child traditionally, and amazing.
Beautiful story.
Yeah. Well, we should get on to the podcast. So today we really want to pick your brains about the My Health record, because you've been researching this, and there's a lot of info out there online that some of it sounds a little bit scary, and some of it, when you talk to people, they say, yeah, but it's not a big deal and I don't really care if anyone knows what's in my health record because there's nothing private. I mean, who really cares? What does it matter if anybody can find out the information? So we'd love to know why you started researching it, and maybe you can give us a bit of a background on your journalism background as well, so people know where you're coming from.
Yeah, well, I guess I sort of forced myself to become a journalist when I was 16 after being diagnosed with a heart condition that was supposedly incurable and all this sort of stuff, and the only options I had was surgery. So since then I've been asking a lot of questions, and I think it's really important for people to ask more questions, particularly here in Australia when we're typically quite trusting of the authorities and quite trusting of each other, which is such a beautiful trait, but at the same time it sort of can do us in.
It can be a bit naive at times.
Yes. So that's sort of where I started, and then obviously went and worked for Network 10 for 2 years and really earned my chops there at Network 10 as a journalist, and then became a freelancer and had been sort of focusing on the gut microbiome and gut health for the last, I'm almost scared to say, like the last 8 years or something.
Yeah, I was thinking it was getting close to 10, so wow.
I know. It makes me sad, but that's okay.
Why? Why does it make you sad? Are you feeling old?
I'm feeling old.
Oh, well, you're just a baby compared to me, yeah?
No, I'm doing.
But you know so much more. You started so young. I mean, at 16, I think I was still riding my bike and climbing trees.
Well, I was still doing that. I was still going surfing and things like that, but I was just a little bit of a health nerd, I guess. And awesome. Continued that into today. But the sort of my health record thing started when I was in Melbourne, hanging out with Damien Christoph and doing a gut movie event. And he said, hey, do you know the Australian government are creating a digital health record for you? And I said, no. I said, what is that? He said, yeah, it's my health record. And I went, oh, okay. And I sort of didn't really give it much thought. And then Damien sent me an article later that was quite relevant to what was going on. And the article said that 41% of Australians didn't know they were having a My Health record created for them. And that between 70 and 80% of GPs that were surveyed in a big survey said that they themselves didn't want a health record. Yeah. And they didn't see any benefit to it, and they said that it would only work if the GPs were on board, and this sort of survey had suggested that they were not. So it was quite a stark thing to read, and then the final sort of nail in the coffin was when I read the fact that pharmaceutical companies technically could have access to our information, and that was, for me, probably a step too far. There were not enough clear policies in place to really protect our information. It was sort of all very loose policies, which seemed quite confusing and vague. And me being not a conspiracy theorist, but me being
looking into things,
somewhat distrusting of the powers that be. Yeah. After I had a look into it, I shared that video that sort of went a little bit viral, basically saying, here's why I'm opting out of the My Health record, and here's why. So
that brings up a lot of questions already. When did it start being put online, the digital health records? It's been a few years, hasn't it?
I believe it actually started almost in 2012 or something.
So was everybody's being put online at that time, or?
No, I think they had just started sort of advocating for.
So you had to agree to have it put online at that time, or how?
I believe so. Yeah. And still, I'm not. I haven't been involved in it, but it commenced back. Let me see. I've actually got my article here. It commenced back in 2012, and since then, 6 million Australians have signed up.
Right. So you had to sign up to be put online. It was a permission thing. Yeah.
And the intention, I think, is good, and that's what I sort of am always quick to say with this. I think the intention is great because it can clear away that confusion if you're jumping between practitioners. It's a one-click assay on your health status. It's like almost having like the health app in your phone available for your doctor to see. However, the implementation of this well-intentioned idea and program has probably not been so
thought through
and thought through.
It's often the case, isn't it? They jump into something, or we jump into something thinking, oh, this will be good, and then afterwards go, oh, I forgot to think about that.
Yeah, and I think they're probably in a rush to get it in, because you see it's been happening for 6 years now. It's 2012 when it started, so they're probably
gone too slowly. We'll just chuck everyone in.
Governments and all that sort of stuff. So they're going to be going, oh, this is looking like an NBN fiasco. We're going to have to really get this into gear and make it happen.
Yeah.
But the issue with having policies in place instead of laws is that policies can be changed very quickly, and we need laws surrounding this, not policy.
So when you say that there's benefits to it, what are they saying are the benefits?
Well, that's the issue at the moment. At the moment, there doesn't seem to be any clear benefit because most GPs are not interested in upholding the program and contributing to the digital health record.
And do they say why?
No. The study sort of said, or the survey sort of said that they saw no benefit to it.
So they can really already get the information that they need?
Essentially, yes. It's just a little bit more, I suppose, convoluted because they're probably dealing with physical files when it comes to someone's health, and they may not be able to access someone's physical file from a hospital that they visited whilst on holiday in Western Australia, and they're going to visit their practitioner in Sydney, and maybe there's something crucial that happened then. For instance, they found out that they were allergic to penicillin. So, there's all these potential benefits where we have a certain degree of clarity when it comes to a patient, and the doctor is probably arguably more well-informed when it comes to treating them. But as we know, unless you're visiting an integrative GP or someone who's actually going to spend time with you, these things are often not really heavily considered.
Yeah.
It's normally in and out. So, and that's the majority of what the health record is for. But the sort of concerns come into play when we see who would potentially have access to it, and the general lack of clarity when it comes to implementing some basic privacy and security issues around the data.
Yeah, so maybe that's what we should talk about now, because I think that's the concern most people have that are opting out. Is the security issues. So can you just talk to us about what you found out about that?
In Singapore this year, there were 1.5 million people's health data hacked by a cyber, I don't know if you could call them a cyber terrorist or something like that. And even the Prime Minister's health data was actually compromised. So they were able to access 1.5 million people, and they're going to have state-of-the-art security surrounding this digital information. And even the best hackers, the best programmers will say that no digital system is impenetrable.
Yeah, of course.
There's always going to be some security issues, and as technology advances, the security and defense mechanisms should advance correspondingly. So that's sort of where we're going. That's one of the biggest risks, is that these cyber terrorists could potentially have access to our health information. Whether you think that is relevant or not sort of depends on where you see that going. It all depends on the sort of information that's in there. But as health technology moves forward in a very fast pace, we'll eventually see genetic information being uploaded to this.
A lot of people already have probably got that.
Totally. And when we see the fact that cloning is becoming more of a we're already cloning dogs in certain countries. So
freaky.
The potential, and this is getting quite far-fetched, of course, but this is the sort of future we're heading to. We don't know what's going to be sensitive information as we move on into the future. Can people take our DNA and do something with it? Can people, can companies, use our DNA to sort of make financial decisions. And this was sort of the very confusing area of the policy surrounding the My Health record. It was that organisations could access the data if there was a quote-unquote public benefit. As we know, the Australian government particularly can be very confused to what is beneficial from a medical standpoint.
Yeah.
They're very interested in enforcing certain medications on us. My concern there was, look, are they going to all of a sudden decide that everybody has, for instance, an MTHFR gene? Are they going to come up with a drug that everybody now has to take? So there's all sorts of different scenarios in when it gets confusing. Now, the policy said that there was no way that a company could access the information for commercial purposes. And my whole point is, well, insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies are commercial companies.
And so they shouldn't be allowed to access it.
So they should not be allowed to access it. However, they are not disallowed from access. They have said it would be on a case-by-case basis, but they are certainly not excluded from the list of people that can access it. And the very interesting quote that I heard from, I think his name is Kim Kelsey or something like that, the guy who sort of basically is running this whole thing, has said that once everything's sort of up and running, they're going to update the data. Update the policies. They're going to review the policies and change them.
Exactly, like they always do.
Exactly. So there's no concrete system in place to ensure that what we're being told will still be relevant and true in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
So his name is Tim Kelsey. He's the head of the Australian Digital Health Agency. And again, the intention is great. However, what they're really, the main concerns are how they're implementing it. And I will say as well that there seems to be a big emphasis on the police being able to access our health data. And there's for a variety of reasons, and one of which is very confusing and has got a lot of people quite angry, is in the case of protecting the public revenue.
So is that a job of the police?
I'm not sure, but they're sort of saying this is an exception when they can access our health data without our permission, is in the interest of protecting the public revenue. They've also gone on to say things like, in the case of any court proceedings, of all the rest of it, basically, any sort of court proceedings, anything involved in an investigation, basically
they
giving
can dig out all your health records and bring it into the courtroom.
And, we don't want that to happen. I think the Australian government gave all our bowel cancer and bowel screening results to Telstra back in 2016 without anyone's permission.
Why?
Because they were updating a digital they were basically creating a digital bowel cancer screening database. But they didn't say to everyone involved, hey, do you mind if we give your data to a for-profit company to create this digital database? It's very confusing, and there's not a safe or impressive precedent that's been set here. I think we need to be quite concerned.
Do you feel that Australia is heading towards the way that America is, with pharmaceutical companies being a big business where they advertise on TV and they always jostling at each other trying to be the biggest medication it's like it's very much advertised which medications to take, and so people will go to their doctor and say, I want this one. Is this heading that direction in Australia, and do you think they could use information to make money, the pharmaceutical companies?
The pharmaceutical companies, of course, are allowed and encouraged to make money because they exist in a capitalistic economy and they are a for-profit company. They are not a human activist. They're not an activist company. They're not a charity. They sometimes use charities for their benefit, but they certainly are not one themselves. So they do have shareholders that they are accountable to. So when we confuse their actions with anything other than a for-profit company with an inherent bias towards making their products more profitable, we sort of do ourselves a big disservice.
Yeah.
And again, this is Australia. We're too trusting when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
Another article I shared sort of after the whole sort of My Health record fiasco was done by The Guardian, which sort of explained that in Australia we are actually pretty much as bad as America when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry's influence on our health legislation. In this article, they basically talked about the fact that pharmaceutical companies are donating millions of dollars to both political parties in this country.
That's scary.
They do have the whole revolving door situation between people moving from governmental positions to pharmaceutical advocacy positions. They do have the paid training. They do blur the lines between what is educational and what is basically propaganda. This is all happening in this country, and yet for some reason we sort of just assume that it just happens in America.
Yeah,
and
we don't hear about it as much, maybe. Do we?
No, no, I don't think so. No, but it's just sort of gaining a little bit of traction now, I think, because of the internet, because people are actually questioning even mainstream media, which obviously had a big influence on the latest ousting of our most recent Prime Minister as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I feel like this turbulent sort of space politically is not conducive to, for instance, a My Health record being implemented correctly and safely.
Yeah.
So I was quite ready to question this thing. It turns out when you do sort of look into it, there is quite a lot of concern that people have around the implementation of the My Health record. And again, this comes down to this overarching and very obvious confusion when it comes to policy, and there's no commitment whatsoever to uphold that policy either. Again, with that comment by
it's not law, it's just policy.
No, it's not law. Exactly. So it doesn't need to pass through government to actually be implemented. It can just be deleted with the stroke of a keyboard.
So within their what do you call it?
The Australian Digital Health Agency.
So they just basically decide if they want to change it without going through any government process.
Yeah, basically. It's concerning, isn't it?
It is. And I think another thing that you mentioned in your video, we haven't actually mentioned much about that. So if you want to watch Kale's video about this on his channel, where do they find it?
It's on the Broccoli Roast on iTunes, which is my podcast, and it's also on YouTube at Kale's Broccoli and on the website as well. You'll find it somewhere. Okay,
we'll put links. But I think one thing you mentioned in there is the ATO can also access the My Health record. Now, why would that be?
Who knows? I can't work out a reason, Joe. It's just crazy. And again, what's his name? Bill Bartell, who was a sort of political health advisor in the 80s and 90s. He sort of commented on this in a Courier Mail article. I'm just scrolling to find it now. And he sort of said somewhere along the way, the police and other agencies, including the ATO, the Australian Taxation Office, have decided that they must have warrantless access to this treasure trove of data. These provisions break the bond between clinician and patient. The idea that police and security agencies and the ATO and other agencies could trawl these databases at will is abhorrent. To its great shame, the Parliament passed these provisions. So again,
I just can't get why they need it.
I don't know. I cannot work out a reason for the ATO to need access to this. And for me, this throws off some really significant alarm bells that there is something else at play here that we are not being told. And I really am opposed to a police state where the government has too much control and too much information on us. We need to remember that they work for us. This is what a lot of Australian people don't realise. They work for us. Okay, they are employed by us to represent us and steer the country in a direction which reflects our highest values. Currently, they are not doing that. And that is concerning. And that carries over into the My Health record fiasco. When we see, for instance, the fact that a financial agency, a financial branch of the government, the ATO, are trying to have access to a medical and health branch of the ATO. Now, clearly the two have ties. However, on a personal level, they should be very different. I don't understand what's what's going on there, and again, they have not provided any clarity. The only thing they've sort of said is that they won't just be able to go and dig in there. They need to sort of apply for data. It'll be done on a case-by-case basis. For instance, in protecting the public revenue, involved in any sort of prevention, detection, investigation, prosecution or punishment of criminal offences. Mm-hmm. So somehow if the police tie in someone's health activity with their criminal activity, they might be able to...
It's very confusing.
It's very confusing.
And I think a lot of people would just look at that and go, it doesn't match up. It can't really make any sense why they would need it, so I'm not that worried about it because, I mean, how could they really use my health record? But so some people may be still thinking it doesn't really matter. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, I think it does matter because it represents a larger agenda to actually. And even if we
don't understand exactly what that agenda is, we still need to be cautious.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm trying to find a good analogy here. Maybe you can think of one, but I think that it represents an overall agenda of the government to have too much say and too much involvement in our health, which they already do.
Yeah.
And we are not moving in a direction where we encourage people to actually take control of their own health. This is, again, a symptom of us saying we need more of your information to control your health for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I think so.
Because this is something that in the natural health circles that we are in, we're always saying you've got to take responsibility for your own health. Don't just pass it off to your doctor, and when things get bad enough, you go and try and patch things up. You've got to always be looking after your own health yourself. And just passing it off to someone else and saying, well, they're looking after it, it's not really very smart.
Yeah. And if just because there's potentially no negative effect or negative consequence. Immediate negative consequence of signing up to the My Health Record, there also seems to be no immediate benefit.
Yes, exactly.
And so
why?
For me,
why
that's like, why do it?
Yeah.
You know, especially when we don't actually know the true intentions of the system.
Do you know what they're saying we will miss out on if we opt out? Do you know if there's anything they're saying we miss out?
No, there's nothing. Okay. No, but hopefully it's mandatory medications.
Yeah. My husband actually works at the hospital and I was talking to him about it. He's like, I don't even know anything about this. So he went to work and asked around and the people that he asked said, no, we're not going to opt in, you know, like the doctors and people he talked to. So that's interesting.
Yeah. It is interesting because they are the very practitioners and cogs in that machine who are going to uphold it.
Yeah.
And if they're not interested in doing that, then the system's going to fail.
Yeah.
And how long are we going to push this poop uphill?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's really interesting. And obviously we're not saying, guys, you have to go opt out, but just look into it and really think about it, right? We live in such a wonderful country that I think we get a bit complacent thinking, like you say, we're just very trusting because we have such a good life here in Australia. But we want to keep it good. So
absolutely.
We have to always look into things and use our brains and
Yeah, I mean, let's use this analogy. I've just thought of one. We were all upset when we found that Facebook and Google were selling our internet activity to advertisers.
Yes.
This is the exact same thing. Our health data is being made accessible.
It's being looked at as a commodity.
And again, the intention perhaps may be to use it as a health tool to help practitioners get a one-click clear assay on someone's health. But looking at the policies, that is actually not going to occur. And looking at the unwillingness of many GPs and doctors to actually corroborate and contribute to the My Health Record, I think that again, it's probably not going to end up being such a beneficial sort of system. And again, when we've already wasted $1 billion on this thing, or wasted, I said, we've already spent $1 billion on this thing. That's a lot of money that could go to actually educating people to maybe take control of their health a little bit more so they don't have to go to the doctor as much, or, you know, all the things that we've talked about on our various podcasts and all our sort of information. Maybe we could be spending that money on sharing that a little bit more.
Yeah. So what do people do if they want to opt out?
They go to, I think it's myhealthrecord.gov.au, and you can sort of go through the process there to opt out, or you can call a number. But it has to be done.
Actually, I've got the website here. It's optout.myhealthrecord.gov.au.
There you go. Thank you. Opt-out. What was it?
myhealthrecord.gov.
There you go. And you have to do it by a certain date.
Yeah.
I think I've heard October 15, but then there's a month grace period.
Okay. And it's not always easy for everyone to opt out. I went online to do it and it didn't accept my opting out online. So it said, you've got to ring this number. So, yeah, it's
Me too.
a little bit tricky.
45-minute phone call.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it is quite easy to do besides that aspect to it. And again, you and I, of course, are not telling anyone what they should or shouldn't do, but these are the sort of the reasons why
we have decided
we are opting out. I don't think it's a really necessary step in the right direction.
Well, thank you for sharing your research with us. And if anyone wants to learn a bit more about this, you can watch Kale's video, and he also did a live video with Dr. Damien Christoph about it. We can put the links on the show notes. And again, make your own decisions. Don't just jump in with whatever you hear. We're not telling you to do that. So just look into it.
Well, I think people, you can't make informed decisions until you're informed, guys.
Exactly.
And that's why we do what we do. It's your choice if you want to go and take an antibiotic, or it's your choice if you want to go and sign up for the My Health Record, as always. But I think it's important that we actually arm ourselves with knowledge to empower a little bit of critical thought and risk-benefit evaluation. That's what this all comes down to.
Well, thank you so much, Kale. Is there any... did you want to share where people can find you?
Just at Kale's Broccoli. Yeah, at Kale's Broccoli on social media. Then you'll see everything that I'm up to. Sort of just bouncing around between the various parts of Australia at the moment. Yes.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, and it was good to catch up.
Yes, so good to catch up. We'll chat soon, won't we?
Okay, we'll see you somewhere on our travels.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks, Kale.
Thank you. Bye.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.